Hey everybody, this is the second video in a video series that I'm doing a new piece of the puzzle every single Friday. I'm having trouble, I'm struggling with my farm. I have a long backstory. I have a very complicated business structure. I have a lot of things going on, a little irons in the fire, and I want you guys to come along for the ride. Help me solve this problem, help me make my farm viable, and then, help me fix my farm. I've got a lot of stuff going on. Let's dive right in. So this video is going to cover why I have such an obsession with food, how I apprenticed on farms across the country, how I found those farms, and kind of, what that process was like and what it led me to. What type of farm fit me? I apprenticed on dozens of farms across the country, anywhere from 1 day to 2 weeks to an entire growing season, and how that affected me and my decision making going forward. Who a few of my farmer heroes were as I was getting into farming, I was getting into agriculture. Obviously the only farmers you're going to know about are the ones who published books. Who were the 3 people that really influenced me to get this whole thing going? And then at the end of this, did this whole journey prepare me to start farming? Could at the end of spending a year on bicycles, a year apprenticing on a farm full season, was I ready to start a farm? Now 6+ years into farming, I have the benefit of hindsight. This video is going to point out whether or not all of this was a good decision or not. We're going to start out with my obsession with food. I have an obsession with eating because I'm a machine. I'm a person. I eat things, and the fuel that I put in my body allows me to do stuff. I like to do stuff. I'm not a very lazy person. I don't sit well. I always have to be moving. I always have to be active in some way or another. So let's go back to when I was in New York City. You saw the last episode of this series. You read the last blog post. You know that I was working for the Howard Stern Show. I was living in New York City. I was biking from work from up, the top of Manhattan to Midtown. It was 9.5 miles one way, so we're talking 19 miles round trip just to get to and from work by bicycle. It's something I did every day on a single speed bicycle. I would go down Broadway. It was an awesome thing. I detail it a little bit more in the blog post for this video. Biking on a casual basis led to biking competitively. I said I like to keep busy. I like to be very active. I joined a bicycling team and a league. I became a Category 4 road racer, which means nothing to a lot of people and something to a few people. Basically, there's Category 5 to 1, and then you're a professional. So 5 is like entry level. After a few races, you can get a Cat 5 license. You have to work hard a little bit to get up to Cat 4, then it's harder to Cat 3, 2, 1. You have to be really good. I mean, you're pretty much professional level to be 1, and then you're a pro, and that just means you got some poor fool to pay you to ride a bicycle, and that's awesome because riding a bike is great. So I was a Category 4. The benefit of being in a 4 is that you were not with the 5s. The 5s, it's like the wild, wild west. The 4s, it was like people who were a little bit more serious, and it was awesome. So needless to say, I was competing in bicycle racing. I was riding in New York City. I was riding in New Jersey, Connecticut, upstate New York. I liked the different varieties, the different types of races, and just got into it. And getting into being an athlete, even on an amateur level, I was in no way professional, but on an amateur level, you get into it. It's a hobby. People have hobbies, you get into it. So I got into my nutrition as much as my skills on the bike. So you have your skills on the bike, your skill training, how to steer, what your tactics are out in the field, on the road, in the race, but also you have to drive the engine somehow. And what is driving your engine is very, very intimately connected with your nutrition. And so say you have a Ferrari. We're not talking about, your old beater farm truck. We're talking about Ferrari. It's a race car. It's something that is going to perform and do amazing things for you, specifically on the road. It's awesome. It's a cool machine. You're not going to put gas in that car that's full of water and dirt and sludge and just like crap gas to run your precision machine, right? You know, even think about this. Even in your regular car, you're not going to put old, gross gas that's been sitting out in the rain with no vent cover and water's getting into it, and your machine's going to perform really terrible. You're not going to put dirty diesel into your farm tractor because you're going to have problems. It's bad. It's very bad. So the same thing. I'm a performance machine. You know, for whatever level I'm at, I have to make stuff happen. I have to perform, I have to race. In that instance, I was racing for first place to win money. There was prize money at the end of these races. Sometimes it was like a hamburger, and sometimes it was some serious money. And you know, I had to make sure that I was fueling my body with the best stuff possible so that I could perform at my peak condition, so that I could cat up or go up in category from 5 to 4, from 4 to 3, from 3 to 2, and so on. So I got into my nutrition. At the same time that I have this newfound interest, I'm talking to nutritionists, I have a coach, I'm on a team, I have other people to collaborate with. At the same time all this stuff is happening where I'm a bike racer, I also find Food Inc., which is a DVD that came out, I'll link in the notes below this video, and also The Omnivore's Dilemma. And I have a friend of mine who's working on an organic farm who was like, you should check this stuff out and come work on my farm with me. So here I am wanting to get better at bike racing, thinking I can, you know, I can level up and do better and better. And I'm getting into nutrition. I find food politics. I find the inner workings, documentaries on the inner workings of our broken food system. And I'm like, oh my God, have you heard about this? It's really insane that, you know, up until that point, I had thought a tomato is a tomato. You can hold a tomato and it's red and it's round and it looks like a tomato. When you slice it open and you get a tomato in February, it looks awful. It looks like a bag of water. You're eating a red bag of water, essentially. Where if you eat a tomato seasonally, when tomatoes are supposed to grow in your area, there is an array of colors and there's a depth of flavor, color, and vibrancy out of that tomato that you won't find out of a store-bought tomato in the middle of January and February. It's just not a thing. You can get tomatoes, that doesn't mean you should. Same thing goes with chicken. The joke with chicken is that chicken tastes like chicken because chicken tastes like nothing. They feed it grain in a barn and it never sees sunlight, and they blow air through fans. And these chickens have 3/4 of a square foot, an A4 piece of printer paper, a standard 8.5 by 11 piece of printer paper. That's 3/4 of a square foot. That's the area that your bird has to stand up, sit down, eat, poop. And it's gross. It's just poop and sawdust. And that is what chicken is. Where a chicken raised on pasture has a fresh salad bar every day. They're moved every single day. They're shifted down the pasture where they're eating grass and bugs. They're getting beta carotene, omega-3 fatty acids, and picking up flavor along the way because of pasture-raised chicken. And like the difference between chicken and chicken is immense. It's phenomenal. But until you care, until you give a crap about where your food comes from, that doesn't make a difference for you. You know, same thing with a tomato, same thing with anything else. So at the same time, I'm finding an increased need to concentrate on my nutrition because I'm bike racing. I also find the food politics and how our food system is working, and that's just wrong. In New York City, in the winter, it's hard to find good food. It's just really hard. And it started to freak me out. So I knew that I had to leave the city in search of good food. I had to live a life around food because I knew one day I was going to have children. Now I have Mabel. And I knew one day my children were going to have children, probably. So I wanted to spend time with my grandchildren. I have a beautiful family who I'm very connected with. I want to see all of them grow. I want to see them have kids and their kids have kids. And in order to live a longer, healthier life and spend less money long-term on healthcare, I spent more money on food, and then became my obsession with nutrition because food is medicine. I have type 2 diabetes in my family. I have hypertension and heart disease in my family, and those are two diseases that are directly related to diet and lifestyle. And if I can control my diet and lifestyle, I don't ever have to face diabetes. That's something that I can avoid by concentrating on it now so that I don't have to spend time, energy, and money on it and resources later in my life. So that is my obsession with food. And with all of that, let's go on to the next section of this video. I'm very passionate tonight. You're gonna see that a lot in this video. It's gonna be a long video. I hope you're along for the ride, and let's go to my next section here. So in order to go in search of my perfect food, my perfect meal, my lifestyle, I wanted to figure that out on a slow way. I was getting into slow food. I was gonna go about it in a slow way. So I always thought, like, if you want to go places, if you want to like travel to destinations, you can take an airplane. If you want to visit places, you can take a car. You can still get a lot of miles in a car. If you want to experience things, if you really want to become intimate, you can go by bicycle. You can still cover a lot of ground. You can cover the boring areas relatively quick, and you can stop and you have a very intimate connection with your atmosphere. And then if you really want to become intimate, if you want to know every nitty gritty detail, which I don't, honestly I don't, you can go by foot, just walk. So I was too lazy to walk. I went by bicycle. And I went by bicycle across the country, visiting farms and breweries all across the United States of America. I went from New York City, then headed west to Seattle, and then from north to south to San Diego, with brief dips into Canada and Mexico, 5,500 miles by bicycle, all to visit breweries and farms along the way. And before I did that, I hooked up with a network called WOOF, or the Woofing Network, whatever makes sense to you. I'm gonna put a link in the show notes for this, but WWOOF, Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. And with those woofing farms, what happens, it's like a dating service, it's Match.com, where people like me wanna visit farms, but they don't know how to get there. And there's farmers who want to have people volunteer on the farm and want to share the experience. Like, hey, we found it. We found the key to good food. Come and try it out. But they don't know how to connect with those people. So what woofing does is put those two together right there. There's this symbiosis. It's nice. So with the woofing network, there was farms that listed where their properties were, what they were doing, and what they were open to in terms of visitors. I was in New York City. I then, by pen and paper, wrote out by hand letters to these farms across the United States. I sent out probably 100 letters. I got maybe 20 responses out of those 100 letters, and some only responded because I wrote by mail. And I said, hey, I'm planning this bike trip across the United States. I don't know exactly when I'm going to be in your area. Here's maybe a rough window of when I anticipate being near you. I would love to come spend between 1 and 5 nights on your property. I can bring a bike and a tent and my own food. I just want to experience what you do, where you do it. And people wrote back and said, yes, love it. I absolutely love it. Come and visit me. So what I did is plotted those out on a Google map and went from farm to farm over the next year, living on the back of a bicycle, apprenticing on those farms. And the key here is, being a farmer now, I reached out to them ahead of time and said, I would like to come visit you. I didn't just show up and expect to be treated as a guest. Now, being a farmer, I can tell you, I absolutely hate when people just show up and say, well, I showed up. I deserve all of your attention. No, you don't, because I have a job and I want to do that job. Please get the hell away from me. Sorry. Anyways, so I reached out to these farms. I visited farms across America, and how I chose those farms is what they were growing, how they were growing it. It's usually organic farms, which is the Woofing Network, and it differed from livestock, vegetables, chickens. It didn't matter. And then when I met those farmers, they knew farmers down the road. 40 miles down the road, that's a good day of biking. That's an easy day of biking, 40 miles. You know, our biggest day was 110 miles. So 40 miles is kind of nice. So if I could hop, skip, and jump from farm to farm, if I could grow these connections along the way, I could see how is that, half-acre vegetable garden going? How is that 10-acre vegetable garden? How is that 100-acre vegetable garden growing? How are these people doing livestock? How are they integrating chickens? What are the different farming operations all across the United States? And then having in mind, as I go, how are those farms marketing themselves? Are they putting road signs out? Are they doing handouts? Do they have an email newsletter? I've been doing this research for years now on how people are functioning as farmers, smaller scale, for sustainable farming, across the United States, and that is how I determined what kind of farm was good for me. So our next section, what type of farm is good for me? When I started out on this bike trip, I wanted to be an heirloom vegetable organic farmer raising obscure plant varieties and whatever. I went on a trip across the US and visited all these farms, and I found out that I love livestock. I love animals. I love the feedback loop. There's a feedback loop with vegetables where if you do something and you can see how they react, and some people resonate with that. Livestock, I loved it so much, where you could put out water and if the animals were thirsty, they could go drink. You didn't have to choose when to irrigate. They would irrigate themselves. All you had to do was make sure that the water was on and make sure that they had enough feed and rotate that on pasture. And you can do all that with vegetables, but for me, my heart was in livestock. I love growing vegetables and I love having a small garden for our farm store and for our family. But chickens, cows, pigs, sheep, that's my bag. So I got into livestock farming knowing at the beginning that I was going to be a vegetable farmer. And the reason why I started farming is because I dug potatoes with my own hands. I had no potato digger. I just had a shovel and the potato fork and dug them out. And that was awesome. And I resonated with potatoes so much that I became a chicken farmer. You know, none of it makes sense. So it took that trip across the country to realize what type of farm I wanted to be, who looked like they had their stuff together, and who did not look like they had the stuff together. And I had to go then and try all that out on my own, because you can only look so much, but eventually you have to do. You have to actually do something and try it out before you can reach the next level of questioning. So for asking the question, how do I start my farm? Do a little research, read some books, and then throw it all away and go out and try to farm. Try to raise something that you're going to sell for money, and you're going to rely on that money, and that's how you become a farmer, is you reliant upon the money that you're going to receive from growing and selling and harvesting and butchering something that you've grown on it doesn't matter, whatever piece of property. And that's when you have the specific questions where the finesse comes in, where the magic of being a farmer, where the professional farmer comes into real is his or her own, is that you're no longer theorizing, you're actualizing something where you're growing and transferring the energy of the sun in one way or another, whether it's sun directly into your vegetables and plants, or sun into grain, which you're then feeding your animals, or sun into grass, which you're feeding the animals. Once you start to convert that amount of energy into something that you then need to sell in order to make payroll, or pay your rent, or your mortgage, or your car payments, or put other food on your table, because you're not going to grow everything that you can grow, or that you need to exist. That's the essence of what it is to farm, is when you're reliant upon converting one type of energy into another and monetizing it in order to continue to feed and house yourself and your family. So to do all that journey, and I spent a year in a full season apprenticing on a farm with a 250 member vegetable CSA with the 35 to 40 head herd of grass-fed beef, raised a couple of pigs, raised some chickens. Did any of that prepare me to be a professional farmer full-time? Oh no, no, oh my God, no. Nothing is going to prepare you for taking the leap other than actually taking the leap. And the best way to approach it is to not go 0 to 100, where you quit your job tomorrow and go become a farmer full-time. You transition into it where you've apprenticed, you worked on a farm, you kept your own garden, you've been farming half-time and working half-time, or having a job in time, or in town, and you transition. Or if you're a couple, this is a special circumstance where one person is able to quit their job and work on the farm full-time, and the other person keeps their job in town to make sure that you have solid income. If you want to learn a good resource or case study on that, read The Lean Farm by Ben Hartman. just the beginning introductory chapters of how he made his farm, and him and his wife made their farm, because it wasn't just him, how they made their farm function in the beginning years. That section alone is super, super valuable. So if you want to start a farm, The Lean Farm, Ben Hartman, again, linked in the section below. Anyways, so did all of these experiences prepare me to be a professional farmer full time? No. Did I make it work? Have I made it work? I'm here 6 years later. I didn't make 1 year and then flop. I've had a lot of different circumstances that we'll go into in future videos of how I've made this all work. But yes, it takes a resourceful, entrepreneurial person to make a farm work. The best definition of what it is to have that true grit to make a farm work that I've been able to find is that it's the heart of an entrepreneur, to ride the high highs and the low lows, to see where your cash flow is, to hire and fire employees, to know where the money's coming in, where the money's going to go out, and how all of this is going to balance out with your family, with your friends, with your lifestyle, with yourself, with your business. How all that's going to work, that takes a true entrepreneur. And that's why 80% of small businesses fail. It's not specific to farming. 80% of all small businesses fail. And those 20% go on. And you may fail at what you're doing, but it takes somebody with the willingness to try to even begin any of this. So I want to end on some of my farm heroes. I had some heroes that I believed in when I started this, and without these few select people, I wouldn't be here today. And no one knows if I'm going to be here tomorrow, but for right now, I am here. And because of those people, I am here. The first one, and there are mixed views on this guy in the farming community, but for me, he's got a special spot right here, and that's Joel Salatin. Joel Salatin has taught me so much, and I've never met, well, actually, I've met him in person one time, and I was like completely dumbfounded, like total starstruck, like, hi, John, I farm good. Please sign my book. And, you know, completely dumb. I saw him out at a book signing somewhere, and just whatever. Anyways, I read a ton of his literature. I've seen even more of his videos on YouTube, and he wrote Pasture Poultry Profits, and without Pasture Poultry Profits, I would have never raised chickens. I would have never had the confidence to tell my wife and my family that I was going to raise and murder chickens for a living and feed them to people. But I did it, and I'm doing it, and it's awesome. And for that, I have Joel Salatin to thank for the confidence to become a farmer. Also, Elliot Coleman. Elliot Coleman is a small-scale vegetable farmer in Maine. And not all of his techniques are brand new, but he took the time to write them down in a book. And for someone like me to look at the 4-season harvest and the New Organic Grower and read those books and say, there's another way. There's a way that I can see an example of it, and I can adapt it to what I'm doing. I'm going to try it, and we'll see what happens. And some of those techniques worked for me, some of them did not. And, you know, it takes trial and error and adaptation to your own system and your own preferences and your own person to then make your own picture work. But without Elliot's books, Mr. Coleman's books, I would have never taken that first step and wouldn't have had the confidence, because someone said, hey, this is working for me, try it out. Try it out. And then the last guy is a personal hero of mine. I talk to him maybe once a year, and I'd be happy if he remembered who I was. We biked to his farm on Foxglove Farm in British Columbia, and he has a whole big soul food project in Vancouver. He started out in California, and that's Michael Abelman. Michael Abelman wrote a couple books that just hit home with me when I was looking for trips across the United States, visiting farms. I find Fields of Plenty. And Michael Abelman wrote this book where he and his son took a summer and rode in a van, which he then was like, do you want to buy my van? Because I don't need it anymore. But that's another story. He rode in a van from farm to farm across the United States, taking beautiful photographs and telling stories about how different people were farming across the United States. And that was a farmer who was farming full-time, took the summer off, had his wife and his staff running the farm, and went out and saw how different things were produced and how what tips, tricks, techniques he could bring back to his own farm. And all of that writing was so inspirational that made me leave a cushy life in the city and ride my bike across the country just because I wanted to see for myself how it was all done. If I didn't see with my own eyes, then there's something transformative of seeing it yourself, experiencing it yourself. Even if you read about it, if you see it on YouTube, you need to go do, and that's the one thing that you can't fake. You can sell philosophy online, you can do research, you can have an internet business where you just sell a whole load of BS, where you just don't know what you're talking about, but if you sound confident enough, people are going to buy into it. And without experiencing yourself, without actually trying, without actually doing it, without having a scientific background, it's all just nonsense. So do it for yourself. Find that perspective. Go out and experience farming and shape your own world. That's what this video and that's what the series is all about. So my closing words on this long freaking video that I've now edited together and put all together is that there is no faking experience. There's no substitute for taking action. The difference between you and the next person is your ability and your willingness to go out and experience life for yourself. If you want to farm, don't write a blog about it. Don't have a Instagram handle that's like hopeful beginning farmer. Just do it. Go out and try. Start a homestead. I don't care if you live in the city. I started growing plants on my fire escape, on my windowsill, just to see what the process was like of turning a seed into a little herb plant that I could take my one cutting of herb a year and put it into some meal in my kitchen. There's no substitute for experience. There's no substitute for action. So go out and take action. Talk to a farmer, find an apprenticeship, use your weekends, your nights, your early mornings. My day starts at 4 o'clock in the morning and ends usually between 10 and 11 o'clock. I'm shooting this video in my tasting room in the brewery because I was so busy on the farm today that I didn't have an opportunity to shoot this video. And this is the only place where I'm out of the wind, I'm away from my sleeping daughter, and I have enough light to shoot a video. That's, I'm burning the candle at both ends here just to provide this content. I really want you guys to share this experience with me. We're on episode 2 of this video series. I talked about my backstory and why getting almost fired from my job was the best thing that ever happened to me. And going forward, I'm going to go through the years of now you're caught up to my apprenticeships and getting on the farms. I can go into more details if you guys got some serious questions, but I really want to get into how I farmed over the last couple of years, what mistakes I've made, what are the constructs and strengths and weaknesses of my farm, and how do I solve this going forward. This whole series is only because my farm not currently viable because of all the things that I have going on. My business, my whole business is viable, but my farm is struggling a little bit, and I want to figure that out. So while all of the things that I'm going to present are going to be within the construct of agriculture, the way that I solve those problems, the systems that I have in place, apply to everybody because everybody's struggling with something in life. Their personal finances, their business finances, their to-do lists, how they manage their time, and making enough time for friends and family. Those are things that I've been concentrating on. Those are things that I have solutions in place for. Those are things that I've been working on for years now, almost a decade. And that's what I want to share with you guys. I appreciate you taking the time to watch these videos. I appreciate you taking the time to invest in all that I have to say here. I love when you guys leave comments on the YouTube videos. If I don't respond to all of them, I do look at all of them, and that it gives me the drive to be up at now. It's like super late at night, and I'm shooting this video. I'm going to go home and edit it and finish the blog post, have it out for tomorrow morning. That you guys are what drives me. And if you want to support me, I have a store on farmmarketingsolutions.com. You can check out the store, buy a book, buy a poultry packet, buy a t-shirt, buy a phone case, buy a sweater, or buy nothing. All I want to see is that more people take action towards sustainable agriculture, action towards regenerative agriculture, and that's why this video series exists. So with that note of intensity, I'm going to leave you guys with a big smile. And until next time, I will see you in the tasting room.